Hi there. Today's CEO of Tasrail, Stephen Dietrich, appeared on ABC Northern Tasmania Breakfast Radio discussing the possibility of passenger rail on the Tasmanian main lines for the first time since 1978. While they were very cautious about commuter rail back on the main lines in Tasmania, be it regional or suburban, they seemed fairly optimistic about the potential of a tourism-based rail service along the rails. In this video, I'll look at what this could mean, how a service could run, and what some other similar services could show about what this could be like. Firstly, let me be clear, this is not an official announcement of any plans by Tasrail. They're very clear this is something they're looking at for the semi-distant future, but will be willing to accommodate. However, I believe this is a very important concept to discuss, as the only rail services I've looked at previously for returning in Tasmania are passenger-centric ideas for frequent service between the key cities. This appears to be a proposal more similar to some services in New Zealand, like the Trans-Alpine, Coastal Pacific, and Northern Explorer, which, while they offer real transport options, are primarily a tourism-based experience. All three are reasonable comparisons to what we could expect from a Tasmanian rail service. So, what specifically did Dietrich suggest? They said they were looking at a service run using existing TR-class freight locomotives hauling passenger carriages along the main lines from Brighton to the north of the state. He didn't specify whether the intention was to use refurbished heritage carriages, construct new ones, or acquire carriages from outside the state. The service will be run several times a week, which I've guessed is one round trip on a Saturday, a Sunday, and a Wednesday. Considering the length of the Tasmanian rail system, a service leaving Brighton in the north of Hobart at 8 am could reach Launceston by 1 pm, Devonport by about 4 pm, and Burnie by about 6 pm. However, considering the lighter loads a passenger train carries, this service could realistically be at Launceston by midday, Devonport by 2:30, and Burnie by 4. These are broad estimations, so don't take it too seriously. In this case, you could have a coach bus leave Hobart City at 7:15, getting to Brighton at about 7:50, getting to a train departing about 8 to 8:30, getting to Launceston in time for lunch, and back to Brighton by 6 pm. This is fairly optimistic, but in my case would be a great This is fairly optimistic, but in my opinion would be a great tourism experience. If we were to make a service relatively usable for passenger rail, then we could add stops in Campania, Ross, Campbelltown, and Evandale. The Hobart terminal will be at the Brighton Transport Hub, a freight yard north of Brighton, as the line into central Hobart closed in 2014. The Launceston terminal would have to be located at the East Hamar Junction rail yards. Now, if we were to look at other corridors, where else could we bring tourist rail? The two main corridors I can think of is from Devonport to Burnie along the coastline, which is currently under investigation by the Donovan Railway for new heritage operations, and from Rosebery on the west coast to Burnie. This would be an absolutely beautiful scenic trip through one of the most remote areas of the state. So it would cover parts of the last untouched wilderness in the country, and would arguably be the best rail trip for tourism in the state. So, I guess this brings this video to an end. This is a relatively short video about an interesting interview with potential impacts and will likely get some misleading coverage. If you want to discuss this more, leave a comment or join the Tasmanian Transport Hub Discord server to hang out with other transport nerds. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time on Tasmanian.